Hi, I'm Gary Kim, the editor of IP Business Magazine, and I'm here today with Bernardin Arnason, a friend of long-standing. He's the owner of Pivot Media. And we're going to talk about IPTV today. And you have done a lot of work in this area. Why don't you give us maybe a couple of observations you've got about where the market is and how it's going to develop?
Sure. You know, the IPTV space is very interesting in that people tend to think it's very immature, and to some extent it is immature, but you know, we also sometimes forget that there have been companies in IPTV for close to 10 years now, primarily the smaller guys, the rural independents. And so once the big guys got involved, that's when obviously all of the interest came to be. So it's relatively immature, but not as immature as people think. And I tell you what I find, I do some consulting with carriers who are getting into IPTV or already in IPTV, as well as vendors who are serving that space. And what I find is there is somewhat of a disconnect, I think, in terms of the expectations that vendors and analysts have of carriers, in that carriers are, you know, really just getting their arms around offering video. And what I hear chatter about is, well, they need to be doing so much more. There's all these applications out here, and there's all this convergence, and there's all of these things that they should be doing. And the reality of the situation is, well, they're still kind of getting their arms around just the video piece. And then, you know, it's going to be a progression that's going to happen once they feel comfortable with that, know how to not only do it technically, but how to sell it, how to market it, how to make a real business case out of it. Then they'll begin to, I think, embrace, you know, some of this stuff that gets talked about a lot at conferences and so forth.
Yeah, you know, you and I have, over the years, sort of batted around the revenue and probably more than revenue, the profit implications of doing video. And you and I talk to a lot of people who say, you know, we've done this and we found really it's not a pot of gold. It's something we got to do for strategic reasons. But is that still true in the market? I mean, again, I think there's some sense that, hey, huge pots of money, you should go chase it. Well, actually, for a carrier, there isn't that much money in it, really.
Right. Yeah, I think that statement still rings true with a lot of people. I mean, there are some exceptions. There are some companies who, you know, are executing well and you know, can draw some pretty good profitable conclusions. But for the most part, I think it's there isn't a quote unquote a pot of gold, and companies are doing it because they recognize that they're in a competitive environment now, and in order to remain really relevant well into the future, they have to go beyond their core business of voice, and they've already you know, done what needs to be done from a from a broadband perspective. So video is kind of the next progression, thing that makes the most sense. You've got a broadband IP network in place, and you want to leverage that network for as much as possible. So video is, you know, kind of a natural progression, but it's costly, and it's not a very solid business case. So you kind of have to go into it knowing that and not expecting that there's going to be a ton of money made. I talk to, again, consult with a lot of companies, and if they were to look at video as a standalone business case, very few would do it because it just doesn't meet the metrics that, you know, a good business case is supposed to. But when you throw in all of the other things we are talking about in terms of, you know, strategic direction and wanting to remain relevant in their customers' lives and subscribers' lives, you know, they pretty much are biting the bullet and recognizing that that's where they have to be.
Right. You know, when people talk about IPTV, sometimes they're looking at it as a delivery system, as a technology platform, or something of that sort. Looking at it from the point of view of services, is there more momentum or more money to be made in simply a good cable TV replacement service and then some really good on-demand services beyond the really fancy interactive, integrate your voice service on the TV screen with, you know, all these enhanced features?
Well, again, that's kind of goes back to my original statement in that companies are trying to really just get their arms around the idea of being a video provider. And for the most part, you know, IPTV companies are really not that different from a cable company in terms of, differentiation, and that gets talked about a lot in terms of how do you differentiate yourself from the competition. The reality is there's not a lot of ways to do that right now, and so you've got to look at this as enhancing a bundle, and that's really the strategy that most companies are going with, is developing bundles, triple play bundles, pricing them right, finding the right price points that's going to hopefully not just maintain your subscriber base, but hopefully grow it as well. So, the idea of additional services generating more revenue related to video, I think there's opportunity there. But right now, companies are really trying to figure out what's the right mix of voice, video, and data, and other kind of enhanced services and features that I can build into an attractive bundle and go to market with that. And then, as they get their feet wet with that, I see other opportunities in terms of incremental revenue coming down the road.
Thanks, Bernie.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
And thanks for watching.